us to do.
Cimarroni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, 119 years ago today, New Zealand women won the right to vote, and we were the first in the world to win the right to vote. So I think it's timely to ask, what would Kate Shepherd think? What would she think of Question Time today with John Key slipping and sliding all over the place in order to defend John Banks, a Prime Minister who can't even be bothered to read a police report? What would Kate Shepherd think of a Prime Minister running this country who is pretending now that he can't even read? He can't even read about what his ministers have been up to, and he's not taking any responsibility. And I don't think that that's what Kate Shepherd had in mind when she cycled all around Canterbury getting signatures on that petition to uphold our democracy. I think she would be ashamed of the performance from the Prime Minister today. But I also think she would be ashamed of that party, the National Party, blocking the extension to paid parental leave, because I don't think that's what she had in mind either when she did all of that work, led those women and very good men to actually ensure that women had the right to vote in New Zealand. I'm pretty sure that she would be ashamed that a Minister of Women's Affairs in the year 2012 spoke against and voted against extending paid parental leave to 6 months. That this government thinks it's okay that women, for financial reasons, have to leave their 14-week-old babies behind while they go back into the paid workforce. I don't think that's the vision that Kate Shepherd had for this country. I also think that she would be ashamed, as the United Nations were actually, about this government's record in closing down the Pay and Employment Equity Unit. They had barely taken charge of the Treasury benches, Mr. Speaker, when that government, one of its first acts was to close down that opportunity for pay and employment equity to be addressed in this country. And as the Select Committee report recently noted, the only work now being undertaken by that government to address the gender pay gap of 12% in this country is to say, well, women just have to go off and get men's jobs. That's the only answer that they have, and this is what the multi-party Select Committee had to say about that. They said, we are concerned that the Ministry has ceased work on pay equity in those occupations and professions dominated by women. We were informed by the Ministry that the Ministry's only strategy for closing the gender pay gap is to encourage women into male-dominated occupations and professions. Well, that just lacks the sort of vision that Kate Shepherd and her contemporaries had 119 years ago, that the only way forward for women in terms of closing the gender pay gap in this country would be to go and do men's jobs. And then there's female unemployment. At 7.2% it reached this year under that government. That's the highest since the last time we had a national government in place. It's the highest rate of female unemployment since 1998. And then the other thing that the government did was they reduced their ambition for having women on boards. Because under Labor, we had a target of having 50% women on state sector boards by 2012. That lazy government wouldn't go down that path and has reduced it to 45% by 2014. And then there's the issue of how they treat education. They got the class sizes issue wrong because they do not understand how strongly women feel about education for their children. Not only having education and access to it, but the quality of education for their children. They also do not understand the importance of New Zealand women of early childhood education and the priority that that should be. Again, that was one of the first areas that this government cut into. In Budget 2010, they cut $400 million out of the early childhood education budget. They not only cut it out of the early childhood education budget, but they did it in a way that would affect women's employment, because they cut the funding for gaining 100% qualified staff in early childhood education. That minister did it when she was in charge. Qualified teachers in early childhood education is a great career pathway for women, and it was specifically the funding that underpinned it that they cut.
The Honourable Simon Bridges.
Speaker, over the last